Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shivani Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Devasesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarni.
की
Okay.
Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome everyone to our ISKCON New Golika Sunday program. Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Shri Shri Radha Sham Sundar ki, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Also, we'd like to warmly welcome His Holiness bkgoswami Goswami Maharaj. He had an entire travel to India, and then he came back, and immediately he was traveling to New Talavan farm, and then now after this more than 6 weeks, Maharaj is back now. So let's warmly welcome. His Holiness bkgoswami Goswami Maharaj ki. So our schedule is, we'll start off right now. Maharaj will give the talk, and we are celebrating glories of Lord Ramchandra today. All over India and all over the world, there's so much consciousness of Lord Ramchandra. Everyone is talking of the opening of the installation of the deity of Lord Ramchandra in Ayodhya after so many centuries. So very historical event. So Maharaj will be he'll give a talk on glories of Lord Ramchandra. And then after that, we'll have an initiation where we'll be chanting 108 names of Lord Ramchandra. And also along with that, we have an initiation ceremony. Because such an auspicious occasion, three devotees will be receiving their initiation from His Holiness. And after the yajna, we'll proceed downstairs. There's a dance performance on glories of Lord Ramchandra, very wonderfully organized by Mother Champaklatha. And then we'll have Ekadashi prasadam for everyone. Today is actually Ekadashi. Yes. So that's our schedule. We'd like to thank the cooks today. We have Prasanatma Prabhu, Sadhvi Radha Mataji and their entire team. They cook wonderful Ekadashi prasadam for the pleasure of their lordships and all the Vaishnavas. So let's thank them for their seva. Also, this is a prayer request by Acharya Sevak Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, I think. So his brother and sister-in-law, they actually met with a very serious accident in Bhubaneswar, and they are in the hospital and going through a lot. So let's offer prayers, request prayers to Shri Shri Radha Golokananda that they shower their blessings to Lord Narasimhadev, that they actually give their protection to these personalities. So let's loudly chant the Hare Krishna mantra, praying for them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Narasimhadev Bhagwan ki Hare Krishna. And also next week, we have a special guest speaker, His Grace Adi Gadadhar Prabhu will be here. So we have programs Friday, Saturday and Sunday. The schedule is on the notice board, and we will also send out more information. And details are sent out on our email and WhatsApp group. So please join us for those programs. So thank you so much. We have a request that everyone can kindly move forward. We'll have many people come in during the class. So everyone can come all the way to here, please. And also you can sit all the way around the yajna. And the devotees, can you please come forward as much as you can. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Ready? Okay. This is like a second Vijay Dasami. No. So, second Vijay Dasami, the victory ceremony of Lord Ram. So, I thought we'd chant this song I wrote about Hanuman and Lord Ram. No cartels, just mridanga. Mridanga's fine. Okay, and it's very easy, the words are very easy to remember. Hanuman, O Hanuman, O Hanuman, O Hanuman. And then Raghupati, Raghava Raja Ram. Patita Pavana Sita Ram. I think everybody knows that, right? No? Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jaya Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai. Okay. Move these things a little bit away. Okay. Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa also Katha Satashi Shima His Divine Grace Sabaya Chamananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Marshila Prabhupada ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Anandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Radhakrishna Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagadasami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachari Shesha Shunyavadi Paschachati. So put this safely back in its rack. So, Om Ganah Timirandasha Gananjana Shalakya Chakshur Unminitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So you can give me the mala now. I know you've been holding it for a long time. So this is a very joyous occasion. We've been waiting 600 years to celebrate this. Actually more than 600. Probably a lot more than that. I actually did some research in this particular subject matter, and there is evidence of Ram temple there before the Christian era was there, and there were several temples that were destroyed up till, of course, you know, the year 1528, when the temple was actually destroyed and there was something else built there. So it's interesting, after all this time, and I'm not going to find fault with anyone except for the communists, because communists are atheists. They're the ones who actually encouraged people not to give that land back to us, but that's another subject matter. So it's the atheists, because anyway, the people who had controlled that area were willing to give it back in 1947. But the communists said, don't do it. Because the communists like to see fighting between different religious groups, because they want to establish the point that their so-called point, that there's no God. We understand there is a God. So anyway, it's a day of glorious victory for those of us who are followers of Sanatana Dharma, and glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. So we're going to talk about victory. And I'm not going to really tell the stories about Lord Ram killing Ravan, because there's a lot more to the Ramayana than meets the eye. Because we all know the story, how he killed Ravan, and then he went back to Ayodhya, and then there was the celebration in Ayodhya of Lord Ram coming back. But I would say, in my mind, there's the lessons that Lord Ram taught us, which are, for us, probably more important. I mean, of course, the lesson of good versus evil, and good triumphs over evil, I accept that. And that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, because the mode of goodness actually always, especially the transcendental mode of goodness, always is victorious over the lower modes of nature. So, that's another thing. And Lord Ram's pastimes are a pastime, and even Ravan was a devotee. But the point is, what did Lord Ram teach us? It's very interesting. What did Lord Ram teach us? Well, we often say, Patita Pavana Sita Ram Raghupati Raghava, isn't it? That he was Patita Pavana. So what does Patita Pavana mean? Patita Pavana means the Savior is someone who uplifts the fallen. Isn't it? Like we have, of course, about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gordasena Maha. So in other words, Lord Ram did not discriminate against who was worthy of his mercy. And I'm going to tell an interesting story. This is from the Ramayana that illustrates this. That once upon a time, Lord Ram was ruling the kingdom. And someone showed up at the door of the palace. And that entity who showed up at the door of the palace was not a human being. It was a dog. Can you imagine? How many of us are that Patita Pavana, the dog showed up at the door? Well, it wouldn't let him in the temple. But this was a talking dog. Nice. So if we had a talking dog, I might entertain him. So it's like one of those Walt Disney movies. Anyway, so the dog shows up at the entrance to the palace in Ayodhya. And basically, he starts barking. Now, it's interesting, in those days, the Hindu kings actually were so open that anyone had a right to come and talk to the king. Anybody. There was actually a bell usually outside of the palace. Of course, the dog didn't ring the bell. Suddenly dogs can't grab anybody with their paws. But there was actually a bell, and the people would ring it. And the king would see everyone. This is actually a Hindu king or a Vedic king or Sanatana Dharma king who would actually treat everyone equally because he understood that everybody in his kingdom was like his children. They're called praja, those who are born in the kingdom. And especially the animals were protected, and especially the cows are protected. Cows and all animals are respected. Because as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gabihastani, Shuni Chaivas Vapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. That a learned sage sees all these living entities equally. And the king is a Raja Rishi. Now, how many people do we have, let's say in America, in office that are Raja Rishis?
Nobody.
Nobody? Oh, I'm offended. So, we don't have any sorry, maybe we do. We don't have any Raja Rishis. That means a great sage who's also a king. What we have is Raja Tamagunas. Anyway, hope this doesn't get out. I'm not taking a political stance here. So, but a Raja Rishi would also protect all religions. So when Ram was present as all great saintly kings, they didn't discriminate between one religion and another. They would actually make sure, as Prabhupada stated, that each and every person who was following a particular religion would follow the religion. In other words, follow, let's say if someone's a Christian, they would follow the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ. Someone's Mohammedan, they would follow Muhammad. Actually, Muslim, they follow Muhammad. And a Hare Krishna devotee would follow Srila Prabhupada. There'd be a rule, the mayor of Hillsborough would say, "Are you serving Prabhupada nicely?" So, Ram was equal. So here comes the dog. The dog is obviously not a member of religion. Maybe he was in his previous life. So he comes up to and he barks, ruff, ruff. And so what happens is that Ram sends Lakshman to check to see who's barking. And Lakshman comes and he says, "What's the problem?" He says, "I want to speak to Ram." And here the dog has the right to speak to Ram. Imagine that. I mean, actually, I can compare this to Parikshit Maharaj, who is going around his kingdom and making sure everything's all right, and then he encounters this cow and a bull, right? And the personality of Kali is cutting the bull's legs, which represent the four principles of religion: cleanliness, mercifulness, truthfulness, and austerity. Torturing the cow at the same time. And he's protecting, he's ready to kill the guy who's in the guise of a king. He's one for Kali Yuga rulers. Well, he is Kali, anyway. But he's dressed up as a king. Interesting. So nowadays you have people in charge of various governments who are dressed up as maybe not kings, but maybe as whatever they are. And they're like Kali. So Parikshit Maharaj, he says, well, that's it, Kali, you're finished. And Kali is given 4 places to live after that, actually 5 places. So in the same way, Ram is actually interested in protecting the dog. The dog comes, and Ram says, what's the problem? And the dog says, Dogu Vacha. He says, basically, I was beaten by this Brahmin. So normally you'd think, nowadays or even previously in India, you have this caste consciousness. The Brahmins would actually beat people, isn't it? If they were a lower caste and they stepped on their shadow or something like that. And so here was a dog. So, they're not learning from Ram. Anyone who's caste conscious is not learning from, anyone who's a racist, anyone who's a sexist is not learning from Ram. They're not Ram Bhaktas. Because to be a Ram Bhakta means to follow Ram and follow his teachings. Not just Sita Ram, and you do all sorts of nonsense. Like one country that I go to, which I shall not mention, Fiji. They have Ram Mandalis, and there's some devotees here from Fiji. They have Ram Mandalis and Sita Ram, okay, break out the kava afterwards, which is intoxicating, so the men sit around in a stupor for the rest of the night, talking nonsense to it. Isn't that true? He'll verify it. He didn't do it, but he's seen it. I've seen it. So, to actually worship Ram means to aspire to follow the principles of Ram. Just see how equal Ram was to the dog. I think it's a really important point. And so, the dog says, Brahman was beating me. And Ram says, call for that Brahman immediately. So they call for the Brahman. Brahman comes in, they said, did you beat the dog? It's interesting, the king was so righteous he could pass judgment right away. It wasn't like a prolonged court case that went on for 200 years. Like this case in India, it's been fought since 1850 something. It's been in the courts, isn't it? I mean, that's like unbelievable. I mean, people die, their children die, their grandchildren die, great-grandchildren die, and finally, we win the case. So, anyway, so the Brahmin comes in, he says, did you beat the dog? And the Brahmin says, yes, but I have an excuse, extenuating factors. I was hungry. My blood sugar was down. People get angry when their blood sugar goes down. And Ram says, that's not proper. Because as a Brahmin means someone who is on the Brahman platform, on the intelligence platform, able to control. You're not a Brahmin if you're not equal poised, self-controlled, austere. You're a Brahma Bandhu. That means you're a friend or a relative of a Brahmin. So, Rama says, you're guilty. And let's figure out a punishment. Actually, we're not supposed to beat Brahmins. We're not supposed to punish Brahmins that much. There's there are injunctions in a Vedic civilization. The Brahmins don't really get punished, ladies don't get punished, children don't get punished, old people like me don't get punished. And so there was this talk, what do we do? And Lord Ram says, let's ask the dog. So the dog says, just make him temple president of the Mandali, where they're taking kava. So anyway, I'm adding a few little things there. And so all the Brahmins there, they're just like thinking, what is going on here? That's actually a reward to become temple president. Sometimes people, actually even in the outside in ISKCON, people look like, oh, you're a guru, you have so much facility. Oh my God. Little do they know about my disciples. Anyways. I just definitely need a shoulder to cry on. So, anyway, they said, this is a reward. And Ram says, let the dog explain. So, again, the dog starts explaining. He said, guess what? In my last life, I was in charge of the temple. Not Mugaloka, don't worry. I was in charge of a temple. And because there was some nonsense going on in the temple, like a king has to accept a certain percentage of whatever sinful activities are happening in his kingdom. That's why I would never want to run for office in America. Because you've got to accept a certain percentage. And if you're in charge of a temple, oh my God. So that's why you got to keep everything on the up and up in the temple. What is being of GBC? Prabhupada actually said, this is a quote from Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada said, Yamaraj made a mistake. This whole story of Mandavya Muni, that he punished Mandavya Muni because Mandavya Muni pierced an insect with a piece of grass when he was young, and therefore Mandavya Muni got a lance put in him. Okay. So Prabhupada said in the Bhagavatam that Yamaraj is one of Krishna's GBC men. So look at me, and it said the GBC make a mistake, the next birth I won't tell you what happens. So this dog explained that I was in charge of the temple, and so this is what happened to me. So I'm gonna want him to be in charge of the temple too. So he'll become a dog in the next life. And Ram said, let it be. He put him in charge of the temple, and then the dog, interesting, there's more to the story that you probably don't know. He started chanting Jai Ram, and he fasted and he left his body and went back to Godhead. There's a happy ending to the story. It's more to the story than most people know. So that happened in Ayodhya. And just one other story about Ram's being equal poised. Of course, there's the famous story that when Ram came back to the kingdom after killing Ravan and bringing Sita Devi back, then there was some talk about Sita Devi. And particularly there was a washerman. Like what Ram did, this is very interesting because this leads up to the story, that Ram was interested in the opinion of his citizens. And sometimes he would send out spies, not so he could incarcerate them if they didn't like him, like nowadays, of course. Like if you go to Russia, for example, that if you say something against you in opposition to a particular person, you go to jail for a long period of time. But this is so he could be better at being a king. That's why he wanted to find out what people thought. And he was very concerned because, again, he considered all the citizens to be like his children. In fact, when one takes a position like king, then one can no longer be thinking in terms of I and mine anymore. If you're not a king, then you can have, this belongs to me, that belongs to me, these are my people, those are someone else's people. It's my family, that's your family. But a king accepts everyone as his family, including all the living entities in the kingdom. So Rama was very concerned. And there's some stories that he even disguised himself to try to understand what people were thinking in the kingdom. So he goes out and he hears this washerman talking. And the washerman is very angry at his wife because his wife came back late from the hairdresser or something. I don't know where she went. That's not described. And he basically says, I'm not accepting you back. I'm not like that Rama. So cruel, isn't it? So cruel. And then Ram heard this, and he thought, basically, I want to have the trust of the kingdom, of the citizens in the kingdom. Because the king's power is actually based upon trust, love and trust. That's why everyone loved Lord Ram. There wasn't like a political thing like democracy where everybody's voting and calling each other names like we have in America. It was just like, you really love your leader. I mean, that's a very sweet society to live in, isn't it? Where you can you imagine? I can picture it in my mind. I've never experienced it, but I can picture it, where you have a country and the leader is just like, wow, hero, great hero like Ram. So then he hears these things, and he's just going through some distress too. It's not that Ram says, okay, cold-heartedly, okay, send her away. He's feeling distressed. This is interesting too, because we don't often think of the Lord Ram or Krishna as having his own life and his own emotions. But this is the reason that we have emotions and we have a life, because God has emotions and he has a life. So God can also feel pain sometimes. I mean, Ram feels pain for us because we're forgetting him. Krishna feels pain. That's brought out in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Krishna's waiting for us to turn back to him and come back to him. And Ram is also waiting for us. When is this foolish person who's acting like a monkey, but he's not like my monkeys? When is he going to come back, or she going to come back to me? So Ram is going through this really painful conflict situation. Avoidance. If I keep her here, it's not going to work out. If I send her away, then I'm separated from her. It's causing her pain. Incredible, isn't it? So he eventually, as you know, he tells Lakshman, you take her off into the forest and drop her off near Valmiki Muni's ashram. And so Lakshman does that, and Ram is bereft for tens of thousands or millions of years, feeling separation from her and worshiping, or even as he's doing sacrifices, having a deity of Sita Devi right next to him. So this is the adherence to Dharma and the internal feelings of Lord Ram, but always sticking to his Dharma regardless. Very, very important principles. So these are some of the things we can actually learn from Lord Ram. Determination, duty bound to his father. I mean, I can give so many other examples. How Ram, even he was willing to follow Kaikeyi. He said to Kaikeyi that even if you asked me to go to the forest, I would go to the forest. Just, so loyal, faithful, thinking of others' welfare. So really, that's how we should remember Ram. Yes, the temple's there, it's beautiful, but ultimately, if we want to connect with Ram, it's a 24 seven endeavor. I mean, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To really be thinking of pleasing Rama. Like Krishna says in the Gita, Bhaktyamam Avijanati Yaminas Chasmi Tatvata. That also applies to Ram. That only by bhakti can one be known. What is bhakti? Bhakti is the desire to please one's beloved, Ram, Krishna, and to act in such a way to do. And then that's the real worship of Lord Ram. So now we can proceed. Wow, it's 5:15 already. So we can proceed with the fire. What happens next?
Would you like to speak a little bit about initiation?
Oh, about initiation. That's why I was just waiting for my cue. All the initiates are sitting there, or yeah, we have. They can sit around the fire. So it's also very auspicious to be taking initiation. For those of you who are thinking that actually tomorrow is the opening of the temple, I will inform you it's today, because today is tomorrow. Now, I have not lost my mind. Because for those of you who know about time zones, it is 10.5 hours later in India. So it is the same day. If we were to celebrate tomorrow, we'd be celebrating the day after the temple opening. Does everybody understand that logic?
Yes.
So today, later today, is the temple opening. And tomorrow, early in the morning, you'll get a chance to see the videos, the live videos from the temple opening. And we ask you, and it's so popular that even in Times Square in the United States, on these big, giant TVs that they have in Times Square, they can be showing the different festivities for the opening. And the temple will probably take years to fully complete. It's not fully complete. Oh, one interesting story I want to tell about Rome that I learned today was really interesting. Because I spent some time studying the history, what happened when the temple was built. The temple that was destroyed in 1528 was built in the 12th century AD, but there were previous temples. And there's a lot of evidence. There was plaques discovered that were underneath the mosque that prove this particular point. So there's one interesting story about a queen, and I forget her name right now, many years ago before there was a mosque there. And this queen wanted to go to where Ram appeared and see the deity. There was supposed to be a Ram deity of Balaram, not Balaram, but small Ram, Bala, not Balaram, Balaram. Anyway, I think you understand what I'm talking about. So this queen, she traveled several hundred miles. Does anyone remember the name of that queen? It's a famous story in India. She traveled several hundred miles to see the deity. The temple had been destroyed or something. And so she arrived in Ayodhya. And it was very dangerous because there were many Mughals there. They were attacking people all over the place. But she did that. She was a great devotee of Lord Rama. So she went, and she couldn't find the deity. The deity of Rama as a child. And so she was thinking, I traveled all this distance, I couldn't find my Ram. I'm going to leave this world just like Ram and the residents of Ayodhya left this world by going into the Sarayu River. So she started to go into the Sarayu River to drown herself. And as she was stepping into the Sarayu River, her foot touched something. And she started screaming. And people rushed up. What's happened? She's a princess. So she was accompanied by others. And it was the deity of Rama as a little child. And that deity, I mean, if you ask me later, I'll do the research and find out where it is in India. It's still there in India. she took it to her temple, her kingdom, and it's still there. So that's a wonderful story, though, Rama, that most people have not heard. Because I did spend the day researching the history. So, now we'll go on to initiation. So, initiation basically means to begin. Now, what are we beginning? Now, before we talk about what we're beginning, we have to talk about what the goal of beginning, or where we're trying to go to. Because when you begin a journey, there must be somewhere where you're trying to go, unless you don't have a goal, you're just like wandering all over the place. I did that before I joined the movement. I went to Europe and I just was wandering all over the place without a goal. But for those of you who are taking initiation, you have to figure out what your goal is. And of course, the topmost goal is to love Krishna. Now, what's the advantage for you in loving Krishna? Technically, that's called a with him. What's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you is eternal life of bliss and knowledge and loving exchanges with Krishna and loving exchanges with the devotees and understanding who you are. What's that? So, understanding who you are and ultimately pleasing the Supreme Personality of God and realizing your transcendental nature. Actually, we all have a transcendental nature. We are spiritual by nature. We all are lovers of Krishna by nature, but we've forgotten it. We're all in a situation of amnesia. That means we've forgotten who we are, what our relationship with God is, and we're covered by this external energy that is covering our knowledge. So that's the reason. That's what's in it for us. And the methodology of doing this is of accomplishing that particular goal is to purify the heart, to eradicate the impediments that are actually in our way of realizing this. And how do we realize it? How do we eradicate the impediments? We follow the process of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means we practice. We have the inherent potential nature, but the way this nature is realized is by practicing that, so you become more expert, like in anything. For example, one may have the inherent nature of being able to swim, so one has to learn the strokes and practice the strokes, but inherently we do have that ability. So the process of bhakti basically is chanting Krishna's holy names and offering your food to Krishna. Very simple. And whatever you do, yat karoshi yadashnashi yat jahoshi dadasi yat tapashushi konti yat tat purisvad marapanam. Whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, do it for Krishna. But at the beginning, we may not have a taste for doing that all the time. And therefore, we utilize our intelligence and to follow certain rules and regulations. That branch of bhakti, or sadhana bhakti, is called Vaidhi bhakti. Vaidhi bhakti means rules and regulations, and then when you become more advanced, you begin to follow spontaneously. That's called raganuga, but you're still practicing. And after some time, you develop really intense spiritual emotions, and that's called the bhava stage. And then after some time, you develop the prema stage, which is pure love of God. But the reason I'm mentioning that it's after some time, because one has to be patient in the endeavor. It's not that you can become Krishna conscious. Of course you could if you really wanted to. But it's not that people become Krishna conscious immediately. So therefore it is required, as Rupa Goswami states in the Upadeshamrita, Utsahan nistyat daryat tatat karma pavartana. Enthusiasm, determination, and patience. Patience. Patience means you do the same thing every day because you have the goal fixed in your mind. And sometimes you may have a taste for doing that, and sometimes you may not have a taste. Just like if you're achieving anything in this world, sometimes you feel exhausted, sometimes you don't want to go to work, sometimes if you're going to the university and your goal is to get a PhD or whatever your goal is in the university, probably to make money. So some days you're not enthusiastic about going to school. Other days you are enthusiastic, but because you have this goal fixed in your mind, you follow very strictly, you study, you take your tests, you do well, you graduate, and you're successful in life. And so because we have and you're patient. Like some of you may be doctors. How many years does it take to become a doctor? Anybody know? 7 years. 12. Okay. Because you have to go through internship, residency, and all that, like that, and work 50-hour, 72-hour days. Seriously, they don't let you sleep. So it takes some time. And so to achieve something far greater than becoming a doctor, sorry about this if some of you are doctors here. Okay. I apologize. So something far greater, it takes years and years and years. But at the same time, the reward is infinitely greater. And if one really executes devotional service internally, it's no longer an austerity. If you actually think of why you're doing what you're doing, who you're doing it for, then it becomes something very pleasurable. And then year after year, I've been executing devotional service for over 50 some odd years now, and it gets better all the time. But in the beginning, sometimes there's tests. There's tests. Like you see in the case of sages, for example, you have Visvamitra Muni, who was tested by Menaka, because thank God Menaka hasn't tested any of us here. At the same time, there's not too many Menakas around, so it's not a problem. So Krishna will send tests too, to see what we actually want. What that test will consist of, I can't say. But Krishna will send tests. And if we remain fixed in our determination to execute devotional service and serve Srila Prabhupada under the directions of our spiritual master, then perfection is there. Like Ram served under the direction of his guru. Everything Ram did was under the direction of Vasishtha Muni. Very interesting. So even though he was king, everything he did was under the direction of Vasishtha Muni. So first initiation, which we are performing today, the first initiation, consists of vowing or promising to chant 16 rounds of Japamala, of Hare Krishna Japamala, every day without fail, following the 4 regulative principles, offering your food to Krishna, very simple promises, and serving the mission of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, in whatever way you're able to serve, under the jurisdiction of the spiritual master and the other devotees, the senior devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. So that's the first initiation. So that's about it for the initiation lecture. We'll keep it short since we have a big program today. So now we can give the names, if that's all right. What? What?
Achman and
Oh yeah, do the Achmans. Yeah, I forgot. You haven't done that already. So Achman is the initial purification in which the mantra Om Pavitra Pavitrava Sarvavashtam Gatopiva Yaksmaret Pundarikaksham Sabaya Abhyantara Shuchi Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu is chanted. And this mantra indicates that if one remembers the lotus-eyed Lord Vishnu, whatever one's background, whether one is purified or unpurified, just leave it.
He wants me to put.
Oh.
you have a,
I forgot I wanted to show everybody a few pictures. Purified or unpurified, if one remembers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can approach the transcendental direction. Okay, I had it up there for a purpose. So,
You want the mouse?
no, I don't want the mouse. I forgot about it. So while they're doing the mantras, we can describe the few pictures we have here. This is actually, whoops, you went forward. This is where Hanuman was waiting for Lord Ram in Ayodhya. It's called the Hanuman Gadhi. This is the Janaki temple in Janakipur in Nepal. And of course Janaki is Sita, Janaka Maharaj's daughter. Beautiful temple in Nepal. This is Panchavati. This is where Lakshman and Ram encountered that beautiful girl, Supernaka. These are nice pictures. I definitely forgot I wanted to show you. This is Jatayu, who tried his best to stop Ravan, and this is the place in Andhra Pradesh where it said that Jatayu fell.
Lepakshi.
Yeah, this is Lepakshi. Yes, Lepakshi, where Jatayu was supposed to have fallen. This is the huge footprint in Lepakshi, which is said to be that of Hanuman's.
Wow.
Did you ever see that one before? And of course, this is Ram Setu. The bridge, this picture was taken from a satellite, of course, Google. And it shows that there was actually a bridge from Lanka, or from India to Lanka. And this is a temple, one of Ravana's temples, a temple dedicated to Ravana, actually, in Kuneshwaram temple in Sri Lanka. And certain places in Lanka, they actually worship Ravan instead of Ram. This is where Ravan has been idolized. We see he has 10 heads here. And this is a well at that temple, which is called the Kanaya hot wells near the temple built by Ravan. They're still there today. This is called Sita Katua, which is the first place where he brought Sita. There's a tourist spot in Sri Lanka. And this is the Ashok Grove. Beautiful place. And also there's a footprint of Hanuman's there. And this is actually some burnt rock, or rock that has actually been exposed to extreme heat. When Hanuman set fire to Lanka. It also, some people say, is where the Pushpaka Vimana landed. And this is where Sita was tested by the fire after Ram killed Ravan. And of course, this is the new temple. Okay. We can proceed now. Ready for the names? The vows, yeah, the vows and the names. Okay, so one by one. Let's see, I have the names here. First, Pranati should come up, and you offer obeisance. It'd be hard to move around the room, but you offer obeisances to the deities, to Prabhupada, and myself. So the time of initiation, the initiates take certain vows or make promises. And one of the promises is to chant 16 rounds every day without fail. And there's another one is, of course, follow the 4 regular principles. So I ask the prospective initiates those questions. So, what are the 4 regular principles?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex.
Okay, how many rounds every day?
16 rounds every day, Maharaj.
Okay, and if you have a chance to chant more in Ekadasi, it's always nice to do that. Okay? So, you get the beads with your right hand. Your name now is Prana Gopi Devi Dasa. Prana Gopi because the word Prana Gopi is the name of Radharani. Okay. So, next. Okay, I got some extra beads because I didn't like the beads you gave me. So, next is Bhupendra and Savita, the divine couple. Savita. Prabhupada, the deities. All right, let's see. Okay, so what are the 4 regular principles?
Maharaj, no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling.
Okay. And how many rounds do you chant a day?
Every day I will chant 16 rounds, Maharaj, without fail.
Without fail. No matter what. Actually, sometimes there'll be testing circumstances, like you'll be sick or something like that, and then just lay in bed. I had those circumstances, just lay in bed and chant somehow or other. The only reason for not chanting is if you're in a coma. And it's allowed. What's that?
Feel like you're in a coma.
Even if you feel like you're in a coma, this would be the most important thing you do every day. Okay, so you got the beads with your right hand. Your name now is Balakrishna Das. It's a nice name, isn't it? I was thinking Balaram, but it just didn't work. Because everyone thinks it's Balaram. So it's better Balakrishna. Okay, so what are the 4 regulated principles?
No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling.
Okay, and how many rounds a day?
16 rounds every day.
Okay, without fail. And if you can chant more in the Ekadasi, it's always good.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you get the beads with your right hand. So your name now is Saki Sundari Devi Dasa. That's of course the name of Radharani.
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's a nice name, isn't it? Saki Sundari, married to Balakrishna. Jai. Congratulations. Now serve Prabhupada's mission. Continue to serve Prabhupada's mission. That's the important thing. Because Krishna is most pleased when we give Krishna consciousness to others, and Prabhupada's mission is to expand the number of devotees and give Krishna consciousness to others. Hare Krishna. Do they have new neck beads already? Okay, put them on. All right. Okay. Everybody gets nice names, isn't it? It's good. Your name's Prajalita. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare